Hello, I'm Ellen Binns, coming today from Wheaton, Illinois, my hometown in the USA. Welcome to Impact, a podcast about how we can each bring about real change in the world and getting practical in making that happen.
And hello, I'm Clive Johnson, also coming today from my hometown, Leigh-on-Sea in the UK. A special welcome if you're listening for the first time, and a big thank you to our new subscribers. Each week, we look at one aspect of how we can connect our hearts to offer healing for others with our collective intention, prayers, and meditation, and go behind the headlines of a critical happening in our world that needs our attention right now.
In today's episode, we're taking one of these regular deep dives to more fully understand and tune in with something many of us may know or think only a little about, and see where we might hone in with our prayers and intentions. And as we record, it's September 30th, 2025.
Indeed. I have already seen quite a few preparations for Christmas.
I know. Not even Halloween. Yeah.
I know. Well, there a friend of mine who works in the hospitality industry, understandably, says, yeah, we have to do it now. We have to get the bookings in. We have to get the plans. And I understand all that.
Yes. Yeah. Hang on.
Hang on, indeed. So somehow we have reached the closing months of 2025. And with this are entering the final quarter of this year. As regular listeners will know, this means a new focus for global healing response. This year, GHR has taken authenticity as its main theme, as you probably know. And in this final quarter, our attention turns to the subject of integrity, which of course is a fundamental foundation for being authentic. As always, you'll find some wonderful resources to inspire you on this theme and support Labyrinth Walks and other spiritual events that you may host on the GHR website. We'll put the link for that, of course, in the show notes.
Mm-hmm. So I have loved this theme this year of authenticity. It's going to be a hard one to beat next year, but I'm listening of, what next year will be. I'm already listening to what we might need in this little world of ours. So, but staying focused on this year, on 2025, what is integrity? Well, I can say I think it's something that's needed a lot more of, but self-edit aside, we can describe integrity as being the quality of being honest, having strong moral principles, and consistently adhering to ethical values, regardless of circumstances. At least that's what the Cambridge Dictionary offers us. So to have integrity means to commit to being truthful, reliable, and open, and being ready to accept accountability for our actions and to correct mistakes when necessary. To apply such principles means behaving ethically in all circumstances, even when no one is watching.
Mm-hmm.
So if we discover a $10 bill has been added to our change at the supermarket till, we point this out. And when we realize that we've made a mistake, we own up to it. And we honor others' points of view, although perhaps not those which are rooted in hatred or prejudice.
Mm-hmm.
In a workplace or social organization we may be a part of, integrity may reveal itself through our being honest, transparent, reliable, and taking responsibility for all our professional duties or acts of service. It is the very opposite to playing games, seeking to score political points or advantage over another person. The word integrity comes from the Latin integer, meaning whole or complete, which highlights the sense of internal wholeness, soundness, and unity of character. This is a concept that will be familiar to most people who are on a spiritual journey. Wholeness being an important aim, and itself a word that is closely aligned with being fully healed, spiritually and emotionally, as well as mentally and physically. And in the language of some faith traditions, holy. Integrity has a broader meaning to honesty. I think this is important.
Yep.
While honesty is about telling the truth and being transparent, integrity concerns having a consistent commitment to aligning our actions, values, and principles, and always choosing to do what is right, even under pressure or when our self-interest may be at stake. That's an important point right there, even when our self-interest might be at stake. This said, being honest is key to having integrity, even if integrity involves following a higher moral standard. We can't have integrity without being honest, but a person can be honest without acting with full integrity. For example, by telling a partial truth that does not reflect moral responsibility. And I used to tell my kids, you can be dishonest without telling a lie.
Interesting,
And
isn't
I
it?
think
Yeah.
that's kind of the same here. Just by holding back some of the truth, you can be dishonest.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. It's one of these words, isn't it? I think a lot of us, well, maybe I can only speak for myself, like to think, oh, I've got high integrity. I live by my values and so on. And when I actually look at what's involved in this, what it really means, it's quite a challenge. It's quite a tall
Hmm.
order to say, well, actually, I really do live fully by this very high moral standard in every circumstance. It's
Hmm.
quite something. And I think that's been one of the interesting, and we might possibly chat about this a little bit later, but one of the interesting reflections for me throughout this year on the whole subject of authenticity is really questioning, well, I like to say and think that I live up to this standard, but do I really? So it's
I
provided.
would say I more strive toward it. I
Yes,
don't, yeah, I mean, I hope I'm integrous, but like, yeah, but I'm always striving for it. And I think it's interesting, like, it when you see it.
yes,
You,
yes,
you when you meet someone who has integrity, you can feel it.
yes, yes, exactly. It's very tangible. So, with that in mind, how might integrity show up in the way we lead our lives? It can show up in such things as keeping our promises, admitting mistakes, and treating others with respect. We mentioned returning money when a cashier gives too much by mistake, as an example. I think I would go with that one personally. I don't think I'd have a problem with that. But we might add such things as keeping private information confidential. Yes, probably do that. Not spreading secrets or gossip. There might be the odd occasion I've fallen
Yeah.
down on that one.
Yeah.
And not trying to shift blame when we recognize we've made a mistake. I definitely fall down on that one from time to time. Choosing the ethical path may bring personal loss, such as putting ourselves at an unfair advantage or causing us to be marginalized in some way. Speaking up for what is right and just when silent compliance would be easier may be similarly challenging. And again, I think probably I can think of circumstances where I'm guilty of that. But if we are to be sincere about living lives with true integrity, full integrity, we must be ready to do and say what we believe is ethically right in such circumstances, not just when it may feel less risky for us to do so, or perhaps we're in a group where lots of other people are saying the same thing.
Right. Yeah. Not giving in to peer
Yeah,
pressure.
exactly. Yeah.
Hmm. So, how can we check that we're living our lives with true integrity? Well, we might resolve to be regularly, honestly reflecting on whether our actions align with our core values. If we're being honest and fair with people in private, and whether our more challenging choices have been guided by the ethical principles we abide by rather than convenience or personal gain. So, this means noticing whether our behavior changes depending on the situation or audience we are dealing with, as well as being brutally honest about whether we've accepted full responsibility for our judgments and actions when we've made mistakes.
Mm.
As we said, living with integrity is a journey. I totally agree with that. That requires regular self examination, making courageous choices, and an ongoing alignment of actions with our values. It's not for the faint of heart or ill disciplined, but it's vitally important if we are to grow and live fully authentic lives. And I think we know, at least I know, I feel maybe in my stomach or solar plexus, I know when I've lacked integrity.
Yes.
I can feel it in my body.
Yes, definitely, definitely. And I think as well, even if we are living with it by our what we believe in most of the time, there are certainly going to be occasions for many of us. Again, I can only really speak for myself, perhaps, when we go against that. I was actually reflecting only earlier today, someone that preaches the message of loving kindness and believes that it's very critical for us to come into spiritual wholeness, what we were talking about earlier, and to actually genuinely practice that and to hold all beings, whoever they are, in with great compassion and loving kindness. But I know that I'm quite very easily can also be triggered by someone's behavior or something that someone says that causes me to be the judge, that wants me to seek retribution or see
Yeah.
justice.
Yeah.
And that is completely opposite of that particular ethic. So to say, I always, my own judgments, even though they're within what's going on in my mind, they're not necessarily being spoken, not coming into the public domain. They
We're only
are
human. We're only human.
exactly, and they are emitting an energy as well.
Hmm.
Yeah. So this is a
Well, and
this is a
self-righteousness is not integrous.
no,
So
no. So I
we
think
can be
again,
humble.
it's one of these words we might give ourselves a pat on the back for saying, yeah, we think we do pretty well most of the time, but let's really be self-reflective on this.
Hmm. Hmm.
So much about ourselves then, but what about integrity in political leadership and indeed elsewhere on the world stage and in society? Well, integrity in political and global leadership is critically important right now because it underpins the stability of democratic institutions, the health of the global economy, and the ability to address complex international crises, all of which we're seeing playing out at the moment. And we were talking, weren't we, just before we came on, about how it always works out that the theme for GHR is absolutely
Hmm.
spot on. It's really what is needed just now. At a time marked by heightened geopolitical tensions, rapid economic shifts, and declining public trust, integrity serves as this essential currency for building and maintaining effective governance and cooperation. Yet, as we've often reported, many societies are facing threats to the democratic institutions, seeing public trust in political authorities at record lows. And the rise of populism in many Western nations has in part been brought about by a widespread perception that a few powerful interests control public policy, encouraged by movements and leaders who rail against the so-called establishment. While some level of public skepticism, of course, can be healthy, widespread distrust can lead to a rejection of democratic institutions and processes entirely, destabilizing political systems. A lack of integrity in electoral processes, such as unchecked political financing, vote buying, and the abuse of state resources, has also been witnessed in some countries, as we know, helped along by the powerful influence of those who dominate thought leading on social media.
Corruption and a lack of integrity weaken economic performance and hinder sustainable development. In countries with a weak oversight or will to challenge the powerful, corruption can become systemic, allowing private interests to capture political decision making for financial gain at the expense of the public good. And we don't need to look far to find those examples.
No.
For businesses too, especially those that operate globally, operating in low integrity environments increases the risk of normalizing bribery, ignoring regulations, and acting fraudulently to win and maintain lucrative contracts. However, many do remain transparent in their dealings and remain committed to high ethical standards, at least in what they say. Organizations in the public sector, such as the police and industry regulators, similarly need to demonstrate high ethical standards at all levels in order to maintain public confidence and support. We've seen some trouble there, that's for sure. We might also consider the role of integrity in enabling committed responses to critical global challenges like climate change, pandemics, mass migration, and economic crisis all require concerted international cooperation involving trust and integrity to build the necessary coalitions and win public support for effective joint action. Notably, some nations are violating international law with huge humanitarian consequences. An international community whose leaders are committed to maintaining integrity must contend with leaders who prioritize a nationalist agenda over global cooperation. However, again, we don't need to look far to see these examples where this isn't happening, especially with the UN last week.
Yes, yes.
With such profound challenges, we can see why restoring or maintaining high standards of integrity on the world stage should be a vital priority right now. And we hope that you'll join us in giving this final main theme for GHR this year the attention that it requires.
Mm. I think there's a key word there, isn't it? Requires. It's not just
Yeah,
deserves.
yeah. And again, when I said we know it when we see it, we know when we don't see it out in the
Yes,
world stage.
we do.
We know immediately. And I think that's another word I want to add to. I always thought democracy had integrity because it had strength. It trusted that it was strong enough to withstand dissension and disagreement.
Mm.
And someone who's integrous can do that. They they have trust and faith in being able to work things out. I'm thinking of Nelson Mandela and people like that who they definitely have. You know what? I'd recommend that book. Read his biography. That's somebody who
On Walk
definitely
of
had
Freedom.
integrity.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a long book.
Yeah.
I used to call it long way to the end, but yeah, it is. It is a wonderful book. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for leaders, it's especially hard unless you are kind of the dictator type almost. You're not concerned about, you feel totally secure in your position and you're not dependent on your party or whatever.
Hmm.
Leaders in organizations as well to actually stand up and be honest, to admit mistakes, for example, is
Hmm.
kind of often not the done thing because in our Western societies, it's often seen as being weak or
Well,
it's
they'll
seen as
crucify you for
undermining.
making a mistake, right?
Exactly,
The opposition.
undermining the giving political point scoring opportunities or whatever it is. It's just not done. So for someone like Nelson Mandela, who really got to the root of some values of what the society was about. I mean, I think that the truth and reconciliation process in South Africa, which he and Archbishop Tutu particularly were really leaders in, is one of the most remarkable, hopeful processes of recent decades, actually. And it does take courage to put these things forward because they're not necessarily going to be popular with your own people, the people that put you into leadership.
Well, and I think to be completely integrous, you have to have empathy. You have to be able to put yourself in the other person's shoes. And as we said before, not become self righteous,
Mm,
judgmental. You're not going to be effective, even in our personal lives, unless you can have empathy
yes, definitely.
and forgiveness. Like I'm thinking of Nelson Mandela and when he would run into his former jailers and who beat him and mistreated
Mm,
him and he forgave them.
yes,
That was powerful.
it was. It was. Yeah, extraordinary. So, where might we hone in with our intention and prayers? And we're going to come in a short while to a beautiful meditation, which you will find on the GHR website. But first of all, as we usually do, some suggestions for possible areas that we might hone in on. And as always, this is the point that you might want to bookmark and pause as we are going through. So, let's just take a moment to allow ourselves to settle, become present, really connect with our inner flame, the inner flame that connects us with our source, with the source, we might say, and shines a light in the world as we open up to radiating, giving voice, vibration to a number of areas for intentional prayer. We ask that we might have insight to see where we may at times think, speak, and act out of alignment with our values and resolve to learn from and turn away from these moments of diversion.
We commit to regularly questioning whether we are living in accordance with our own values, being ready to admit when we don't apply these in private, or call out what and when we feel is right to call out in public.
We ask the leaders of all public institutions, including in the military, police, and other command structures, will remain humble to recognize the noble qualities of high integrity in leadership and be impassioned to live according to their own values and those of the organizations they run. Getting to the truth, in other words, of what these words mean.
We pray that the consciences of those who would seek to mislead individuals away from the path of integrity, including through social media influence, will be convicted of the depth of damage this may cause within society and to individual lives.
We will that international leaders and all who have influence on the world stage, who are engaged in discussions and committing actions to address the most pressing global issues of our time, will be strongly motivated to act with the highest integrity.
And we ask that business leaders will remain transparent in their dealings with governments, regulators, clients, and the public, and remain committed to observing high ethical standards, especially to truly live out what they promise in their mission statements and ethics policies.
So before we move to our suggested main focus for intention for this week, a prayer meditation, which is offered on the Global Healing Response website. We'll put the link for that, as mentioned earlier, in the show notes.
I really love the quote for this one too. It's integrity is the essence of everything successful. That's definitely something to ponder, and that's our Buckminster Fuller who said that. So that's a little gem you can keep in your mind when our listeners can think about, maybe take away from today.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I wonder if, again, the word successful there, it's getting me thinking about what is a successful life.
Mm.
And of course, how you answer that question is going to depend on your worldview. But if you are someone who is on a spiritual journey and believing that we're kind of being refined, we're kind of, if you like, our soul, our character is being refined, it's being made more holy, the words, or more whole, the words we were using earlier. For me, if that is a measure of success, then it has to be the case that integrity is an absolute foundation to that.
Right. So success being on the right path.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Yeah. So, very profound words there.
I would love to read the meditation for this quarter because I think it's so germane to everything that we're dealing with.
Yeah.
And, like Clive said, you can definitely find this on the Global Healing Response website. So again, you might want to settle and just take this in as much as you can, as much as you can hear it. I think it would be great for all of us. O Creator of all, guide our hearts toward the light of integrity, that we may embody the values that unify and uplift humanity. Teach us tolerance to see beyond our differences, to honor every life with dignity and respect. Help us to listen deeply, speak kindly, and act with compassion in all we do. Grant us the courage to pursue justice, not for the powerful alone, but for every soul in need. Inspire us to accountability, to recognize and amend our mistakes with humility. May our actions reflect our words, and may we strive each day to be better than yesterday. Instill in us trustworthiness, that we may honor our promises, build strong bridges of faith, and be dependable stewards of this earth and each other. Unite our hearts in shared purpose, that together we may create a world rooted in integrity and shining with hope.
Beautiful, powerful words. Words that you wrote, I guess.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like I definitely, no, I didn't. Because I feel it was spirit-led. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And sometimes when you read these words, I don't know if this is your experience as well, but when I read something I wrote, or not that I do very often, some time ago, or someone points something out, and sometimes you think, did that come from me?
Yes.
But then you realize, no, that was when I was hopefully tuned in and letting it flow. Yeah. Yeah.
I agree. I definitely feel spirit leads this whole thing. It guides me to what the theme should be and all of it.
Yeah. Yeah. It
It's
is
a lot of listening. Yeah.
absolutely what is meant to be. Beautiful.
Mhm.
So then, turning to our main focus for this week, as we, this final quarter of the year, focus on Global Healing Response's attention to the subject of integrity, we suggest holding as our main intention. We will that inspiring and trusted influencers will rise up to highlight the importance of integrity in everything we do, moving the hearts and minds of those who have influence in our companies, politics, and public institutions to challenge themselves to live and lead according to high personal and corporate values. Please join us in holding this, and don't forget to check the resources supporting this topic on the Global Healing Response website. Some great things and beautiful quotes and other things you'll find.
I think if we put this word on our lips and say it more often and people hear it more often, it kind of reminds us that it's something we want to think about. So repeat it often.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So that about wraps it up for this episode. Remember, you can connect with us in the Facebook group and for live intention holding in Clive's daily Insight Timer offerings, and with me in the Labyrinth Activist Network's Zoom calls. Details of how to hook up with these are in our show notes. Look out too for our next special topic episode, which we'll be releasing in the next few days. Thank you for listening and for sharing with us and holding intentions. We look forward to connecting again next time. And in the meantime,
thank you. Go well. Stay safe.
And remember, we're more powerful together.
Impact is presented by Ellen Binns and Clive Johnson and produced by Impact Productions. Our theme music is by Chris Collins and our logo artwork is by Auto Classic. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible, or your favorite podcast provider. We're a non-commercial podcast dedicated to people of any faith tradition or none who yearn for healing in our troubled world. Please pass on the word so others may join us in making an impact. Thank you for listening.